right, here we go. Welcome to this edition of the Showcasing College Baseball podcast, powered by College Recruit Prep. I'm your host, Ross Hawley, and I want to thank you for spending some time with us wherever you might be watching or listening from. If this is your first time with us, welcome. Go give us a follow on our Facebook group page at Showcasing College Baseball, or visit us on the World Wide Web at collegerecruitprep.com. In today's episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Mr. Tim Huber, the head baseball coach of the Augustana University Vikings out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Entering his 16th season at Augustana, Coach Tim Huber has an overall record of .547 and 256. He's got a conference record of .347 and 127. That's a .681 win percentage overall and a .732 win percentage in conference. Let me put that a different way for all you high school baseball players out there listening to this. If you get recruited by Coach Huber and then you get to play for Coach Huber, get used to winning, because you're going to win 7 out of every 10 games you play under this guy. Sign me up for that. Coach Huber's guided the Vikings to 7 NCAA postseason tournaments, 3 NSIC tournament championships, and in 2018, he brought home the first national championship in the program's history. Bottom line, this dude knows how to recruit, he knows how to coach, and he knows how to win. Here's my interview with Tim Huber, head baseball coach at Augustana University. All right. Hey, Tim Huber, head baseball coach at Augustana University, man. Tim and I go way back, but man, I'm so excited to be talking with you today, Tim, and about the college recruiting process and kind of what you gain your insight and your thoughts. So I just kind of want to open it up and I'll say this. Tim Huber, Augustana University Division II national champion, 2018. They went to the series last year, and this dude is a 2-time national coach of the year. So his advice and his insight, man, we're looking forward to hitting it. How you doing today, Tim?
I'm good. I appreciate having me on, and it's probably a little warmer down your way. We've had a cold snap up here in South Dakota, but it's still baseball season inside the dome when we're practicing. You don't know any different.
Hey, I'll tell you what, man. Yesterday it got down to like 5 below down here in Dallas. So
well, there you go, right? It's cold. It's cold everywhere, but yeah, it's still baseball season. I don't care what it is.
That's right. Hallelujah.
We have to have nice facilities up here to be able to get anything done. So that helps.
That's right, man. Augustana University, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Sioux Falls is, to me, man, I think it is one of the gems of the Midwest. I love Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Augustana University, one of the best athletic departments in Division II, in my opinion. They got national champions coming left and right. One of the most respected schools, athletic departments in the country. Talk on that a little bit about, the pride you take in being the head baseball coach at Augustana.
Yeah, it's been a nice run. I mean, like you said, not just our program. We've had a lot of sports here have a lot of success in recent years, and we just added Division I hockey, which is kind of a unique and cool thing going on. They're going to open up I think it's a $70 million building right across the street, whatever that's going to be. We take occupancy here this week, and they're kicking it off with games in a couple weeks. So that's exciting. But yeah, the success of our university across all our sports has been really, really impressive. There's some, national rankings that we get put into every year because of overall athletic department success. And then, yeah, from a baseball standpoint, we've been in a sweet spot here since really probably a little bit before 2018 when we won the whole thing. But even since then, we've been really good. Made it back last year in a year we maybe didn't think we would. And Sioux Falls, you hit the nail on the head. Sioux Falls is a big reason for that. Just the growth this is my 16th year, the 15 years I've been in town, it's incredible. It really has grown a ton. We're one of the biggest growing cities of our size in the entire country, here in South Dakota. And a lot of people don't know what South Dakota is like. There's certainly a lot of farming, but Sioux Falls is different. We're over 200,000 people and a lot of stuff going on here. It's been pretty cool to be around the growth that's happening.
Man, that's awesome. I know going into this season, expectations are probably high as they usually are. I know you guys finished the season last year in Cary at the World Series, finished the season ranked number 8 in the country. Talk to me a little bit about your expectations going into the season. I know you guys start off, I believe it's February 23rd against Regis. Talk to me a little bit about your insights and your expectations for the season.
Yeah, it's a little later than normal for us. Usually we kick off right that early February week, but just kind of how the schedule played out this year and putting things together on paper, we're starting later, but it gives us more time. I think it's kind of ironic because last year with a young team, I would have rather had more time, but we played over in Hawaii last year, kind of a cool trip. Fourth time we've taken a group over there. It's always exciting to do that. But that February 1st date came really fast with some young players, and
no kidding.
And we weren't ready for it. We didn't play well. We struggled out of the gates, and I thought it might have kicked us in the butt and might have even screwed up our opportunity to get into the postseason. And our guys kind of persevered and got through it, and we made a run at the end, obviously. But this year's team is very different. We're really experienced. We return all 9 position players, starters, every single guy. And then there's a couple backups that I think are going to probably start for us this year potentially and bump out guys that started last year on a World Series team. So that's kind of, there's some good depth there. I think we're going to be more offensive. We lost a stud on the mound, Seth Miller, who is, I always say he's kind of on my Mount Rushmore of pitchers that I've ever coached. He was that guy you just give the ball to and you just sit in the dugout and wait till he's done pitching. It's kind of one of those deals. And
love that.
But yeah, so we're going to miss him. Outside of that, we have all of our pitchers back as well. Our closer led the country in saves last year with 14. We've got some good guys at the front end of the rotation. I think our middle relief is going to be solid. So yes, expectations. You don't win games on paper, but we'll certainly going to be prepared and expect. Our guys are going to expect to have a chance to go back. Whether we can play well at the end of the year or not, who knows? But we're in a good position. We're just, again, I keep telling people we're in such a good spot with our program right now. It's been a nice little run since 2018 all the way to now. And we graduated. There's a handful of freshmen. One of them, JT Mix, is a Dallas kid. Mixie was a freshman on our national championship team in 2018, and so his class graduated in 2022. Wow. And there was 3 freshman starters that made it through as seniors and a couple other really talented guys. So 2022 goes, we make it to a super regional, get beat by Southern Arkansas, and we thought, that was kind of a nice run, and let's see what happens here in last year, 2023. And sure enough, we made it back to the World Series. So yeah, we're in a good place.
You know what? Before I get into all the recruiting questions, because this is for our Showcase College Baseball group, our Showcase College Baseball podcast, I got to know this, and I know you're an extremely humble dude, so I gotta ask you this though. There's something about what you're doing with the places that you've been at and the winning that happens, and so many people are trying to find that secret sauce. In your opinion, why do you win so much? Why do your teams win so much? What do you think the secret sauce is?
Well, there's a lot, but I think it's process. You just got to put a process in place and trust what that looks like. And, I've been coaching long enough now, but you learn a little bit along the way. And, I think it's like anything else. When you screw up, I tell our players this all the time. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. It's the same thing for coaches. You're going to screw up along the way, and you have to figure something out from those mistakes. And I think that, myself, our staff, we've been fortunate enough to figure out what our mistakes have been, and we're doing things significantly better now than we were 10, 12, 15 years ago. We just are. And so I think it's part of that, just the process we put in place. Some of the stuff we did 15 years ago, we're still doing, right? So there's some good things, but there's a lot of new stuff. So I think that's just the age we live in. And there's so many opportunities out there to keep expanding your knowledge and your growth as not only a coach, but our players, we tell them that as a person. And so, I think the secret sauce, the process and what we go about doing, the type of person, when you get into this recruiting discussion, the type of person that we are looking for specifically at our school, and so I think I've been fortunate to put a good staff around me, and that's been a big piece of the puzzle. But our development process, I believe, is really, really good. Because of the staff around me, and then just identifying the type of person that we need to bring into our program that fits academically, and then the athletic piece to that puzzle. And we always tell guys, for us, we don't, even if they're a transfer guy, we don't expect them to show up on our campus and be a finished product. That's just not how it works here. We want them to want to have that growth mindset. And, usually like a freshman comes in, and sometimes we have guys that play early. We don't expect that, but if they do, great. But in a lot of times our scenario, we had a kid by the name of Carter Howell who got signed by the Giants 2 years ago, but he redshirted his second year of college. He wasn't good enough yet. And Carter's a typical story for us, that you come here and 3 years later, people are like, who the heck is that guy? Nobody knew about him. Nobody recruited him. Wow. Next thing you know, they're dudes, so that's that development process, which I think sets us apart from some other places. Some programs can just get, for our level D1 bounce backs that are really skilled and talented. We're not getting a ton of those up here. Mm-hmm. So some of those schools in the South that we go play, it's like, holy cow, they got all these guys running out there, just big physical dudes that didn't like their experience somewhere else. So they go to those schools, and our guys come in as freshmen typically and develop in our program, and they look different in a couple of years.
Man, Tim, I could go down that road for 5 hours. I'm not going to, but it's what I miss so much about college sports. I mean, I think we're both fans of the game of baseball, and we're fans of sports in general. And I think as a fan of college sports, you like college sports because there's like loyalty, and there's year and year and year and year.
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to. And I mean, is that kind of a how has that affected you guys? Has it affected you? I love knowing that you guys are all about developing. But is that how are you guys dealing with that?
No, it's something I should point out, in the world we're living in, the transfer portal and all that stuff. You look across the landscape of our level, okay, Division II baseball. I can look at all the teams that were at the World Series last year, teams within our conference that had some really talented players. Their best guys are all leaving. They're going to these Division I schools. Some of them are good Division I, some are not good Division Is, but again, for me, it's looking at the individual and the right type of person. And we haven't had, I keep saying, we haven't had a guy leave our program that we've wanted to leave our program. There's been a couple odds and ends dudes that have gone into the portal and gone somewhere else, but the guys that we want here, they stay here. The guys that have, we've had a ton of professional athletes come through our program now. We're over 30 just in the last 11, 12 years. Do you think those guys could have played Division I baseball? Yeah, absolutely. But they choose to be part of what we're doing. So again, one comment I make is that, so this goes back to what you said earlier. I think part of the reason we've continued to have success is we're retaining our guys. Like, our studs are staying here. They're not, hey, we helped them get better, and now I'm better and bigger, and than Augustana, I'm going to go somewhere else. And for me, the message a lot of times, and I think this is a lot of kids need to look in the mirror, and I just ask, is this about you or is this about we? What are we doing here? And for me, that's a big message for us, for our players. This isn't about you, man. This is about all of us and what it looks like. And so we've been fortunate, I think, because of how we go about our business, the type of person we have here. They like what's going on. They want to stay. They're just not looking to jump ship. And I think you see that now. I talk to people even that I know fairly well, and they go into the recruiting process. Well, I'll just go to this school, and if I get better along the way, then I'll go to a better school. Wow. That's not how it's supposed to look, and I'm not saying that there aren't situations where you maybe should leave and go somewhere else, because I get it. There's maybe bad experiences and what have you, but I don't love that whole process. I think it's a broken situation. I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon. And want to talk about getting down the rabbit hole. I could go on down the rabbit hole on this one in a while.
Heck yeah, man. Well, let's kind of, I want to let me, my first question that I kind of have for you in terms of recruiting is, I want to know what it says. If you can see that on the screen, is when do you typically start really watching and recruiting guys? Because I know the new rule, the new Division I rule, August 1, right? Before September or August 1 of junior year is when recruiting can happen now. So from a Division II perspective, and you talking about really developing guys, when do your eyeballs get on guys and you say, hey, I'm really interested in somebody like that? What's that all about?
Well, yeah, boy, there's a lot of layers to that question. So, I mean, to me, boy, I've got some buddies now that either I played with in high school or that I played with in college who have some sons that are getting to this recruitable age, right? I'm that old. We're that old. Ross.
Man, no kidding.
But it's funny because, as they get into their 9th grade year, some of these kids have not played high school baseball yet. And again, some of my buddies' kids are really talented, and they're going to all these camps out there at these big schools, Power 5, SEC. And I'm just kind of like, man, hey, slow down, just pump the brakes a little bit. Like you said, there are some good things going on in Division I recruiting, or they're supposed to be anyways, whether coaches are following it or not. There's all these workarounds that are out there, and, they talk to the travel and club coach, and you're still seeing commitments way back in, freshman, sophomore year of high school. Right. So I mean, come on. I just, again, that's another system that needs to get fixed a little bit. But what that looks like, I don't know. I don't need to deal with it, thankfully.
Yeah.
But again, to really truly circle back to your question, for us, I think it's the time frame you're referencing is when we really look close at players as they get into the junior summer. We start at least identifying people, that some point in that junior summer our contact time frame is just slightly different than Division I, but it's not much different anymore. And so the junior summer, we can start reaching out to kids that are going to be, or they're rising junior year. So the sophomores going into junior year. But even for me and or successful Division II program, we don't spend a ton of time with those guys because usually the way I put it is if we really like that kid, chances are that at our level where we need to compete, they're going to have some Division I opportunities. Whether that Division I's any good or not, that's a whole nother story. But they're going to have some opportunities come up in front of them. So we just need to give those kids a little bit more time. Let them figure out as they get into the fall of their junior year, even in the winter of their junior year. Like for me right now, we're start working on our 25 class more seriously, meaning that the guys that are juniors, we're contacting them. We're starting to look at getting them to campus, identifying people that we like. And the reality is like, I'm not even making an offer to a kid in that class. There's no point for me to do it. Otherwise they're just going to sit on it for months.
Why is that, Tim? Because that leads me into my next is kind of walk me through that process. You've identified them. I love that. That gives the kid time to just breathe and be a baseball player. Yeah. But walk me through that typical process of once a guy gets on your radar.
Yeah. So again, I think for us, the Division I coaches might answer this differently than me. I try to tell people to just slow down. I always do. You got to slow down. That freshman, sophomore year, slow down. There's no rush. If you're that guy, you're going to look so much different than everybody else in your class in a recruiting process. Like you're just going to go out there. I always say, so I think what happens sometimes, and I'll answer your question in a second, Ross. I think what happens sometimes is people look at their kid and say, oh, he's 13. He's throwing 82 miles an hour. It's like, who gives a toot? Like, what? Great. Good for him. Yeah. But if he's 15 and he's throwing 90, that's different. That's really different. Now you're a legitimate Division I guy that the Power 5 schools are going to look at. But if you're comparing relative to your age group, you're looking at it wrong. You're not a guy at that level. Now you might turn into a guy at that level, right? In a year or two or whenever your body develops and all those things. But we get so caught up in again, as you get into that freshman, sophomore year, like who's recruiting me? Who are you talking to? Like, who cares? Sure. It's only happening because there's those are elite kids that look so different and their bodies are mature and developed, or they aren't mature and developed yet. And they move so effortlessly at the, using velocity as an example, at the 85 mile an hour mark, they move so effortlessly. You can really look at that person. So again, for me, the reason we don't make an offer too early is because, again, we just want those kids to have the opportunity to look around a little bit. I think for me, there's always a red flag when some school says, hey, here's your offer, make a decision, or we're going to move on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at some point, every school has to get to that, right? I understand that. But at the end of the day, it should be more of, hey, we like you. Go look around, see what other schools are out there, see who you like. Are they interested in you? And compare and contrast. And again, the longer I do this as a coach, we tell guys a lot, I want you to want us. I want you to want us as much as we want you. It just doesn't work very well if it's the other way around. If a coach does an awesome job of selling their program and they talk that person into showing up on their campus, those are the guys that leave because they just don't know what they're getting into. And for us, when we work really hard to find guys that really like us and want us, they just show up and go to work. Maybe there's more talent out there than that kid, but that dude's going to show up here and he's going to trust what we're doing and what we're saying. And so for all those reasons, when guys are in the time frame you're talking about, that junior year, we just want them to go out there and see what the opportunities are. I always tell kids in that class, hey, if Vanderbilt moves on you or you name the big Power 5 school and you get an offer, good for you, dude. That's awesome. I'm going to be happy for you. But the reality is when someone is in that, I always say the 16, 17-year-old kid, and you're still a kid at that point, they're not looking for the number after the D to be a 2. They're looking for the number after the D to be a 1. And that's just the reality. And it's okay. I understand that. We're all good with that. Those kids have no idea how good we are. They have no idea how talented the players in our program are. And again, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So we just try to slow play that group a little bit.
That is a really good point. I remember talking with former North Carolina coach Mike Fox one time, and he said, Ross, I want When a guy commits to us, I want him to be both feet in. To me, I was like, holy cow, that is complete. That this dude is secure in his program. He's secure in his coaching. He knows what he's looking for. That's exactly what I asked you earlier. I said, what's the secret sauce? Maybe that might be part of the secret sauce is you guys know who you are. You're not, you know what kind of team you're going to have regardless of who's saying no to you. Is that fair to say?
Very fair. I've said this to some recruits, and it maybe it comes across egotistical. I don't mean it that way, but I'll tell some guys, hey, whether you show up or not, we're going to be good.
Yeah.
You know, I don't mean it to be negative when I say that. It just, we've proven that. That's the reality of it, you know, and it's back to my point. Like in recruiting, there's that group A. Every school has it. Maybe the different schools, the different talent level that you're looking at, but there's a group A. And you're looking at group A and you're doing what you can to show those guys what you've got going on. But if group A says no to you, I always tell group A, that's okay. For whatever reason, you want to look at something else. Group B still has some talent. They show up here and we're going to still be good with group B because group B, that dude wants to be here. You know,
yep, that's right.
Group A is like, why the hell am I here? I want to be somewhere else. So that doesn't work.
Yeah, man. And just the idea of, you said this earlier, you want dudes that want you. Like I can't imagine. I've never been a national champion, but I can't imagine. I can't even imagine it, man. But I can't imagine getting to that level without anything other than exactly those type of guys. You said JT Mix earlier, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that guy was all about Augustana, and that's what it takes, right, to win.
Yep, no doubt about it. Yeah, and to go back, I didn't know what it looked like either till we got there, Ross. Wow. I had no clue until we got to the World Series. I'm like, oh, I guess we are okay, you know, and I guess we can win this thing. So, as they say, you don't know sometimes until you know. But the lines are razor thin in so many areas, right? So, like in the recruiting world, the stuff we're talking about, it's so. I always say this: it's so hard to tell a guy, "Hey, you fit at this level," or "You're not good enough for that level or that school." Like, man, you just don't know. You don't know where that person's going to end up. But then on the flip side, we have to be realistic, you know. So it's kind of a catch-22 to some extent, where, you know, some people don't necessarily know, and that's what we're asking them to know is be realistic on where you should go. Well, they don't have a clue. So, well, it's hard. It's really hard. I think there's that battle between, you know, the high school coaches, the travel coaches, the college coaches trying to do their best to figure out maybe where somebody fits. But again, sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. We all as coaches have stories of the guy that I didn't think was good enough, and he ends up being a monster Division I pro guy, or the guy that, you know, you thought was going to be a stud, shows up, you're like, oh man, what did I miss? So yeah, and there's a lot that goes into it, but you got another question for me?
Let me. Well, I want to go right into this next question. Is because I know, man, those lines are really blurry, and I really don't know how you say, hey, you're a D1 guy, you're a D2. Like, to me, when I say the guy's getting recruited by Augustana, when I hear that, I'm like, he's a dude. He's a dude. He's a dirt bag. He's got a skill set, and he's going to bust his tail, and that he's going to be a really good player, and he's probably going to have a professional opportunity if he does what he's supposed to do. So that said, like, when you're out on the recruiting trail, what physical qualities are you looking for? I know it probably varies from position to position, but what in general are you looking for?
Yeah, so when we put a team together, there's a lot that goes into it. Some guys are the guy you're talking about. Some guys are the role guys. You know, they're a lot of times, hey, you're a catcher. Go run a team. Be a great teammate. Work your tail off. You once in a while you get it to line up where the physical attributes match the other stuff that you're looking for. But so there's a variety of things that we're trying to put together. I think from a physicality standpoint, the example I use a lot is pitchers, just because it's easy. So many people focus on the numbers. You know, my spin rate's this, my velocity's that. I do this with the baseball, whatever. I mean, largely I don't care. I just don't. We've taken guys that have been 80 miles an hour and they've been monsters for us 2-3 years later. And, you know, the thing that's fun for me, everybody can tell the story of a guy that came in throwing 82 and, you know, 3 years later he's throwing 92 and he's a pro guy. That's cool. I really like the guy that maybe we get in our program that somebody else in our conference passed on. Like in our conference, where we're historically been better the last 4 or 5 years than the other schools, and they pass on a guy. We take them, and then again, they turn into a stud for us. That's pretty cool. So the example with velocity in pitchers, I've heard it so many times when we're recruiting pitchers that, because again, we're looking at those ed guys, those tweeners in my mind. The pitcher is the example. Smaller Division I is probably on these guys too, whether they've offered or haven't offered. Those are the type of pitchers we're in on. And so I'll ask, like, what is school A or school B doing with you? What are they telling you? Well, coach, they like me, but they're kind of, they want to see me one more time. And a lot of times, you know what the answer here is, they're looking for a little more velocity. Oh, if you threw 88, 89 instead of 84, 85, we'd probably be recruiting you. I'm like, who gives a toot? If you can't project out 2 years from now, you got some problems. Now, again, I get it. And since we've become more successful, we're getting more pitchers that are already touching that 88, 89 mark, not sitting there, but touching that. Where back 10 years ago, no chance am I getting that guy, not in our program, no way. So yes, the opportunity to get more velocity, the more successful you are, the higher levels you are, great. But you just, in my mind, the best college coaches out there are the guys that can identify how someone moves, how their body works, and try to look forward. You have to be able to do that, unless you're the big dogs, unless you're the guys that just say, we're going to get the guy that throws the hardest, that has the best stuff, using pitchers again as an example, get him to show up and stay out of their way and let them be really, really good. Like, there's some programs that can get that kid.
Man, I'll tell you what, man. That really makes me feel like hopeful, because I understand the brand of baseball you guys play, and I understand the brand of baseball at pretty much all those levels. But I just know this. I remember coaching a while back, and we with a D-bat team here in Dallas, and we went to the Connie Mack World Series, and it was funny that we had these guys that were high draft guys, top 3 rounds, top 5 round guys, that they threw 95, but when we had to win and go play Midland, and we were going to the dude that was 85 to 87, that was a 4-pitch mix, could throw it, in 4 quadrants. So I want to take that concept of the physical and say, tell me about the intangibles, because I think that might be a part of your secret sauce. What are the intangibles? What does a guy need to stand out to a coach like you?
Yeah, I think I'm like most people. I get caught up in the physical pieces to the puzzle. I really do. I'm no different than others. But the older I get, the more that I tell our assistant coaches, my graduate assistant, he's in charge of anybody that reaches out to us. You talk to the coaches, find out from the club coaches, the high school coaches, find out about more. And again, like, yes, we're going to still ask, what do you see on the baseball field? What do you see for skill sets? But I want to know more about this kid. What's his work ethic? What's he like as a teammate? What's his personality? I've started to ask those questions more. What type of personality does he have? Because it starts to identify the qualities that you need when, the poop hits the fan, right? It's who are you? I referenced Seth Miller earlier. If you could picture what Seth Miller would look like from a physicality standpoint on the Mount Rushmore of people that played for me, you'd be way off. And Seth, if he ever hears this, will probably chuckle too. I love Seth Miller. He just doesn't look the part, right? He just doesn't look the part. He's just kind of that round mound of a guy, but he was really physical. He worked his tail off. He had way more strength than people realize, and he had the ability to translate that on the mound in a really, really impressive way. Now, again, then you take this part of it, all the mental makeup that guy had, his personality, how he went about his business. Those are things we're trying to dig into. It's not always perfect, but I've certainly spent more time on that type of a guy. I won't say who, but we took a kid in this recruiting class that I think has some of the best intangibles that we've seen, where maybe his skill set was lesser than some other guys at his position that we could have recruited. But again, I just think that those things rise to the top. And if you're in a good program, and I guess I put ourselves in that area, the process works. It looks good. And so you get the right type of person that really buys in and wants to be here, like we talked about earlier. Those intangibles might be, now don't get me wrong, this kid's not a bad player. He's still solid.
Sure.
But we maybe had the opportunity to pick somebody else in his class at his spot, and we picked him because he had all these other things that we were looking for. And he's checking all those boxes.
Is that something you communicate to him? Are you like, hey, absolutely. I think there's something different here?
Yep, absolutely. You can probably tell I'm a no BS kind of guy, right? You know me. And so I say it all the time, like even in recruiting, this is what you got to work on. You're struggling here. Like I don't, sometimes I can think of a freshman in our program right now. We talked about in recruiting, like, I like you. He runs really well. He's got some juice. He's a physical kid. He's a catcher. I'm like, I don't know if you can ever catch. And that's really mainly the only position he's ever played. He's got some stiff hips. But we talked about that. I remember him asking me, Coach, what do you mean? I'm like, well, this is what I'm seeing. I know other schools in our conference are recruiting you and looking at you and they like you. And I do too. I just don't know that if you're a guy for us behind the plate, but we're going to recruit you because if you can't stick back there, you can move somewhere else because you can run, you have bat speed, you have some of these other tools. So, but again, I that's the way I always approach it, is just be honest and upfront. And then back to the point, they show up here, they're not leaving because we talked about all this stuff. They're not shocked when we sit down at the end of freshman year or whatever and then say, well, you're struggling with this, you're struggling with that. It's like, well, we probably talked about that in recruiting. And so they're sitting there in my office like, yep, I get it. I'm going to keep working on it.
I'm hearing it, man. And I'm hearing this because my wheels are cranking right now. I'm taking notes internally, but I'm like, you're thorough, detail oriented, transparent. And I want to lead into the next question and say, talk to me about grades. I mean, like you said, personality and everything. What part of academics, how do you evaluate the guy because of their grades?
Yeah, so there's a lot of variables here too, kind of what we have going on our team. For me, it typically starts, we're just recruiting the top end guy, number one. It's the type of school we are. Again, I think any coach that's had a level of success needs to look at what their school is and who they are and what they do well. There's schools in our conference that are going to be more, the rural type kids, and they're going to be the guys that are your golf course managements, your egg program, like whatever it is, right? That's not us. We're not that school. We're high academic. We're more expensive. We're looking for a type of person that, again, for us, we've had a lot of nursing students come through our program. We've had pre-med guys. I've got a handful of doctors that played for me. I mean, it's a different level of academics, and so we have to find the right person. Not only because of the type of school, but they're not going to be successful. I don't want to set them up for failure if they come here and they don't care about school. Now, again, I don't try to put a GPA on it per se, but I'm going to give you a great example, Ross. This year's sophomore class. So 2 years ago, we had a really big group. It was the 2022 season, and we were losing a ton of really talented guys that year. So we brought in a big class and we got lucky with some talented freshmen. So anyways, that senior year, those kids, I did the math after we did back then it was still called the early signing day. Now it's just the signing day that opens in November. But we signed our group of guys, and I think 90% of them were signed at that time. We maybe picked up a guy or two later in the year. But I did the math on their GPA that year of, I think it was 15 incoming freshmen. It was 3.95 was the average GPA of the guys in that class, and it was 50. What? It's crazy, right? But that's
holy cow.
That's different for us. Now, that's not every year. Don't get me wrong.
But that's insane, dude. I've never heard that.
Right. And even for an academic school, I didn't really think that much about it. We're looking for guys like that. But when everything's signed and delivered, I started looking at their GPAs, and I'm like, that's incredible. Holy crap, this is crazy.
So what do grades tell you? Like GPA, like in high school? Awesome. If I'm what do they tell them? What do they say about me?
Well, again, I'll use this example. We got a couple of guys coming in this year's class that, because we have some really high achievers academically, I let the bar go down just a touch, but we're talking like 3.2, 3.3 GPA guys that we decided to take that we normally wouldn't. We just move on to the guys that are 3.8, 3.9, 4.0 guys.
Wow.
But they're really talented. They're good fits for our program. But here's what I do. If you're a guy that's in that world, meaning you're a low 3 GPA type guy, if you're below a 3.0, we're not going to talk. I'm not wasting my time. ACT is important, but to me, I think the GPA tells so much more of a story. For example, I've always said if you're a 28 ACT and you have a 2.8 GPA, it tells me you don't care very much about school. You're not working very hard.
That's right.
Right? Because you're pretty smart. You're a pretty smart dude. The other thing that I'm telling guys, again, if they're not a 3.5, 3.6 or higher GPA, I want to see their transcript, and I'm going to look at what did their grades look like their sophomore or junior year, right? Like you could have a stinker your freshman year, but then you're starting to show progress. And in this year, as an example, some of the 2025 kids that we're talking to that are juniors right now, if they're in that lower GPA range, and whatever range it is, but if they're in the lower GPA range, I just tell them flat out, if we're going to recruit you, I want to see progress from your GPA. I just want to see that GPA rise a little bit. And so I tell them at the end of the fall semester and now at the end of the spring, I want to see their transcript and just see progress, because if there's not progress, then that tells us something. As they get older, they just probably don't care.
You know what, Tim? I love that. What you just said is the high test guy, the high test score, the low GPA says a lot about work ethic. And I think I want you to really hammer that home is you don't just magically turn into a hard worker. And coaches like that, right? You don't win with laziness. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no doubt. Some people are like, oh yeah, coaches just say that. It's true. It absolutely relates to what's going on in life. Who are you? What do you not care? It's a care factor. There's so many things. If you just think about it, what we do and how we do it, do you care? If you care, you're going to be way more successful than if you don't care. And grades is just an example, so if they're not caring about what it looks like in the classroom, I don't need them to get to college and have a 4.0. Like, it's not very reasonable at our school to get 4.0 or even a high GPA. Get a 3.0. Be happy with that. That's okay. Don't be perfect. That's the other thing we get sometimes at a school like ours. You don't have to be perfect. So I'm not asking someone in high school to be perfect. It's okay with, again, failure is okay. There's nothing wrong with that. You learn something from it, but don't be okay with a failure situation, whether that's you're a straight A and you get a C and you kind of punt. You figure out why you got that and you do something about it. So
love it.
The why it matters to me is that, again, I just feel that at the high school level nowadays, everybody hates to say the word nowadays, it's not very hard to get a good grades. I'm sorry, but it isn't, because right. We live in the world where, if you got bad grades, your mom and dad are going to go complain to somebody, and it's every teacher's trying to do what they can to have you be successful. It's just
the truth, man.
Everybody wants to boost everybody up. They don't want to push them down to help them learn. Whatever. So,
oh man,
that's another topic. So I just think,
dude, you are honest. You are honest. Hey, give me 3 more questions, and then, Coach, I'm going to get you out of here.
Cool.
Nope, I don't want to talk about the transfer portal. I don't want to talk about that right now. I want to know, okay, Augustana, bottom line, is a legit program, okay? So there should be a ton of guys that are going to watch this. There are going to be a ton of guys that should know who you are. National Coach of the Year, national champions, Augustana. What's the best way for a recruit to get your attention, and how should they let you know that they're interested in Augustana?
Yeah, to me, that's a good question. Really, really easy one. I think that from my experience, what we tend to see as college coaches, it's not just me. I've done this on some panels with some other college guys. They say the same thing. Most families, whether it's the recruit or the parent, they're waiting for someone to reach out to them. They're just waiting for contact, and it can't be that way. It can't. We're not everywhere. We don't know everything. People have to reach out to us. I just think at the end of the day, we talked earlier about how we do a good job in our program of trying to do some digging and some research and finding out more about the person. The families, the recruits should be doing the same thing. They should be finding out about the type of school they want to be at, and then checking into those schools, looking at, how many guys have transferred from that program, asking questions, those kind of things. So to me, it starts with the very initial thing. How do you get our attention? Well, if it's a game setting, go play the game the right way. Hustle. Don't pout, don't throw your bats, be a good teammate, all that kind of stuff. Your physical traits are your physical traits. You can't do anything about them. The weird thing with the game of baseball, everybody knows this, but basketball or football, for the most part, you're going to stand out even if you have your worst game. You just are. Baseball, it's a lot harder to do that. So you just have to do all the other stuff, so that if I go watch a kid and I only get to see him one time in a game setting, and he just has a crappy game and it didn't work, but you did all the other things right. You handled failure well. You were a good team and all that kind of stuff. When I circle back with the coach, because the coach, I was probably there to watch him for a reason.
Sure.
Hey, yeah, he had a crappy game. You're right. That's not what he normally is. okay, great. Then I'll make sure I see another game. So that's number one as far as the game setting. Just do things the right way. It doesn't need to be rah-rah. It doesn't need to be looking, is coach watching me? Just do things right. And then I think the other part is, to let us know that there's some interest. That's really important. It's reach out with an email. It shouldn't be just a huge mass email. I'm not saying it can't be the same email that you send to multiple places, but the best job you can do of making that known to me when I read the email that something about us. Good. I'm going to read through it a little bit more. I'm going to dig in. One real popular question I ask people, especially like they're from your area or from Chicago or whatever, somebody reaches out to us from a further away than a 4-hour ring. Do you have a connection to Augustana? Do you have a connection to Sioux Falls or South Dakota, whether that's a family member, and at the end of the day, if there's not, that's okay. But if there's something there, essentially what I'm saying is, why are you interested in us? Why is there some interest? And then that tells you that person has done some research. They're familiar with your program. It's because, again, in our chairs now as college coaches, we get a ton of these things every single day. So what does it look like to reach out and have some identifiable traits specific to that person that you're reaching out to? I just think that's really important. Don't get crazy with these long, huge emails. Start with something real simple. If you want to put a video clip or two in there, awesome. If you want to put stats in, whatever, fine. I don't think it's that important. Start with something basic, simple, reach out, and then just kind of go from there. Pretty much every college has a recruit questionnaire you can fill out and get on their radar that way. So these are just things that, it takes 5-10 minutes of someone's time to reach out to a coach or an assistant or whoever. And then you can kind of, the other thing I always say in this discussion is most college coaches are going to be pretty honest. Most college coaches, if they feel that you're reaching out to them specifically and it's not just a mass email, they're going to respond to you in some way most of the time.
Sure. That's good advice, man. That's really good. Quickly, I want to know what camps in the world of recruiting now. I feel like they're getting more and more important due to budgets and they're efficient. I mean, just call it what it is. So what role do camps play in your recruiting process, identifying guys?
Cool. Yeah. So this is a big question that I get asked a lot. I think it's huge. I really do. But I also tell guys, recruits specifically and their families, don't go to every camp out there. Don't go to everyone that sends you an invite. Make sure that it's a school that you're really interested in, because at the end of the day, for me, when someone gets in front of us in person at a camp, it's so different than if I go to a prospect camp at somebody else's place or just a Prep Baseball Report or whatever is a pretty nationally known name. Just to use an example, if I go to a PBR event, I can't have contact with the kids. I can't talk to them. I can't tell them, hey, try this, work on this, whatever. But if you come to one of our camps and we can just talk to you, we can see you in person, we can, I can't tell you how many guys that I'm like, God, he's really close. Let's try this. One of the kids we signed in this class, this is no joke. He came to our camp and I had seen him in a game and he came a lot of times we do our camp at the end of the summer. So it's kind of a last look kind of thing for the senior year. So it's rising seniors. And a kid came to our camp. I had seen him in a game, and I was probably a no on him. I didn't think we were going to move on him. And ironically, he signed up for the camp to be a catcher and a third baseman. He's a big physical kid, and I had known he pitched a little. I think I saw him pitch a little bit in the high school game, and he wasn't going to pitch at camp. And so I'm like, hey, you want to pitch today or not? I have to talk to him to have this conversation for these things to happen. So because he was at our camp, he was in our setting, we could do this. He was clearly interested in us. He ended up signing with us.
Sure. Wow.
And he goes, oh yeah, I can pitch if you want me. You want to see me, coach? I'm like, yeah, I think so. He gets up there. He's 86 to 88. I think he touched an 89. Good slider. He's 6'3", 6'4". I'm like, yeah. We're for sure going to move on you now. But I no joke, Ross, earlier in the camp, because we invite other colleges around our area, I was talking to some other guys. I'm like, I kind of like this kid. I don't think we're going to move on him. You guys should, I really like for what I'm seeing from him. And they're like, oh yeah, we like him, blah, blah, blah. And then he gets on the mound, he does that. I'm like, yeah, we're going to recruit him.
Hey, everybody get away. We're going on him.
That's an example of how I think it can help in the process, but I just don't believe it's important to go to every single thing out there. If you're really interested in a school, you should try your best to get in front of the coaches if you can. The other cool thing, our level, this is way different than Division III can't do it, Division I can't do it. We can do tryouts. So we can bring one individual person in and do a workout with them, which I love doing that.
Wow.
That works
So
really well.
so if you're interested in a dude, hey, come throw a bullpen for me. Hey,
Yep.
come get some swings. Do you do that routinely?
Way more often than most. It's great
That's
for us.
awesome.
Again, another real quick story. I'm too much of a story guy, but
Love it.
our catcher, he's a pro guy. He's a slam dunk pro guy. I think some scouts missed on him this past year, Dre Dirksen.
Wow.
Dre's senior summer, he came to our camp. He went to another school in our conference's camp. I won't say who. And they told him absolutely not. He's just, catch and throw wise. He's physical. He's 6'4". He's now 210. Back then he was like 200. He's now like 220, 225. Big physical.
Big old dude.
But he looked good catch and throw, but his swing was jacked up. It was a mess. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I like to teach hitting, but holy cow.
Yeah.
So I told Dre after the camp, I'm like, hey, let's come back. Him and his dad came back to campus. We did a one-on-one tryout and did all the paperwork and did all that stuff. And I wanted to see if we can make this correction in that kind of a setting. I feel really good that you're going to be able to make this correction over a couple of years in our program. And again, like he's hit 17 home runs, last year, 16 the year before. It's just, he looks different. He's a Division I player, but wow. The point is we recruited him because I got to see him a second time in an individual workout. And I thought that he could make some adjustments, and he has over his career. He really has. And that's what baseball is. Some kids can't do it. So that one-on-one interaction, again, we're fortunate at the Division II level, we can do that where other places can't, but that's something we like.
I know you're probably talking about that snap, right? That launch angle. I'm not going to get into that.
He was he was really long arm action. It just like, thank God he got to see some pitchers at his high school level that threw 78 to 80 because he cleaned up on those guys. But yes.
All right,
he didn't make a change.
Coach Huber, one more question, and then we'll wrap it up, man. The last question I have for you. You're probably gonna hate me for this, but what advice do you have for parents when it comes to the college recruiting process?
Yeah, I'll say this. One thing I hear a lot. Oh, this is their decision. We want them to make the decision. Fine, fair. They're going to be grown men here soon. They should do that. But you're the parent. You're the parent. So if I'm sitting here and you're the parent, Ross, I'd say help your kid with the process. Help them understand some things that you're hearing from different places. Don't just throw it on them. You make the decision. You live with it. You go there. Yeah, I mean, again, yes, I think that's the most important thing. But I just think that parents should do a good job of educating themselves and helping educate their son with the decision they make. Because, again, at the end of the day, it should be a 4-year decision. It just should. You're making a decision that's a really important part of your life. And in my mind, last time I checked, a 45 or, 45-year-old or 40-year-old, 50-year-old, whatever person should have more life experience than a 17 or 18-year-old. So help them with the process. I just think that's really important. At the end of the day, don't be too involved. So I'm going to flip exactly what I just said the other way around and put some ownership on your son. I think that's where the role is. That's where it can kind of blend together a little bit. Be part of it, but put something on them. Tell them to ask the questions. And I don't get me wrong. I think it's great when parents are on visits and they ask questions. I really do, because 17-year-olds just sit there and twiddle their thumbs when you ask if they have questions.
Yeah. Hey, do you recruit the parents? Because I've heard that before. Hey, we recruit the family. We're not just recruiting the kid, you're recruiting the family. Any truth to that?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's no brainer. I'd like to think we've got a pretty good family thing going in our program. I mean, it depends, I think, is the answer there. If there's not a previous relationship with the parent, and a lot of times, again, I've been old enough now, I've got a lot of relationships. There's more conversations with the parents along the way. But if I don't know the parents at all, I'm probably not talking to them a ton outside of that recruiting visit. Now, if they have stuff for me, I always say, feel free to reach out. Yes. So maybe we're different than others. I'd be curious to listen to or talk to you later after you've interviewed a bunch of college coaches on if they're doing things differently than me. But I think from my end, it's I got to get to know the person that I'm spending a ton of time with, and that's that 17-year-old. But yes, in certain scenarios, we do find out that mom and dad are maybe more involved than they need to be. That still might be a red flag, to be honest. At the college level, it's different than high school, so I don't worry about it too much. But yeah, there's some stuff there to think about, I guess, from a parent perspective. Man, walk that line, be involved, but don't don't go crazy. Let your kid be a kid. Let them start to become a grown man. And at the end of the day, for me, I think the short answer to your question is I don't tend to do a ton of recruiting of the parents unless I have a prior relationship.
That tells me so much about you, though, and I think how I interpret that is your relationship with the student athlete is the one that matters. And if that student athlete isn't going to have the courage to have the relationship back with you, it's probably not going to work anyway. Man, Tim, this has been awesome. I have one request before we end this. I think I see a Natty trophy in that background there. Is that a Natty trophy?
Yeah, oh, it is. Yeah, you want to see that?
You bring that bad boy to the camera and you give him a hug for us.
Oh,
guys, look at this. Look at that.
And the ring was behind me, so that I don't see how well you can see it, but that was a ring.
I cannot tell you enough, Tim, how, dude, what you've done at Augustana. So proud to have connections with you. I'm so proud to be your friend, but I'm like, you have made so many people proud of Augustana and the group and the men that you've created that have gone through that process. And man, I am just so thankful that you took the time to drop some knowledge for our for our families and that are going to be watching this. And man, I cannot thank you enough because you are one of the best, not just Division II. You're one of the best college coaches, period. You deserve all the credit. And I can't wait to see how you guys do in 2024. So that said, Tim, thank you, man, for jumping on with us today. And I wish you the very best of luck in the spring season. Okay, man.
Yeah. Appreciate the kind words. It's been a fun ride here. And I'll end it with the recruiting thought for anybody. My last piece of advice: don't get caught up in the number after the D. It can be a 3, a 2, a 1, NAIA, JUCO. Look at a fit for you and enjoy the process.
Awesome. Again, I want to thank Coach Huber for taking some time to talk with us. Go give Augustana Baseball a follow on X and Instagram at Augie Baseball, at AUGI Baseball. And for more information on Augustana Baseball, visit goaugie.com. I'm your host, Ross Hawley with CollegeRecruitPrep.com. And on behalf of Showcasing College Baseball, I want to thank you for listening. Be sure to follow the Showcasing College Baseball group page on Facebook or visit us at CollegeRecruitPrep.com for more of our podcasting content. We will see you next time.